Joining us now, Speaker of the House of the Supermajority in Virginia, Speaker Bill Howell. Speaker Howell, good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you, John. Always good to be on your show.
Well, we got a lot to talk about. We just learned, let's go here, we just learned that the Democrats are going to file a lawsuit in order to stop the judge's decision about the photo ID law, which is basically says that you simply want a voter to prove who they are. Now, we've had so much evidence of certain precincts where the number of voters in precincts are more than the number of votes cast in certain precincts are higher than the number of registered voters. Either there's a mistake in the machine or somebody is voting that shouldn't be. Now the Democrats are doing a countersuit. What do you think of it?
Well, not much. It's really a waste of time and money. The issue has been settled about photo IDs. People want photo IDs. You know, they've done a poll on Virginia's photo ID law, and three-quarters of Virginians, including 78% of independents, 66% of African Americans, and 57% of Democrats support the photo ID law. It's something that people realize is common sense. The courts have continually upheld it, and what's happened here is the George Soros people have funded these lawsuits in several different primarily southern states to try and overturn the photo ID laws that they have. And in Virginia, the case went before the federal district court and was thrown out. Basically, it was held that our law was constitutional. So now they're appealing it to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, and I suspect we'll have the same result. It's been found that way in all courts across the country.
Well, I mean, the only thing you need to do is get a photo ID. It's free. It's easy to do. Look, if I take a Greyhound from the city of Norfolk downtown to Fredericksburg, your hometown, I have to show an ID. I just can't get on the bus. Everybody has to show an ID for everything. It's just maddening to me why you simply can't prove that you are who you are, and how in the world that's discriminatory. Because then you could say, well, Greyhound is discriminating against me because I can't ride the bus without an ID. How does this make any sense?
Well, it doesn't make any sense, but again, it's sort of a last-ditch effort on the part of the Democrats to try and gin up the turnout for the election this fall, to try and do in the courts what they can't do legislatively. It's the same with these redistricting suits that they're continuing to put forward.
Insane.
And it's been funded by these real left-wing groups like George Soros. They've got unlimited money, and unfortunately, it's costing the Commonwealth hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend these perfectly constitutional laws.
It's like the antithesis of common sense. Don't you agree?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
right.
do.
Now, Mr. Speaker, yourself and Senate Majority Leader Tommy Norment, you're both suing the governor. I guess you're not the only person that's upset with the governor right now. I'm not going to go there. Suing the governor to stop his executive order, basically that he did for restoring the voting rights of 200,006 felons in Virginia. Can you explain that lawsuit?
Sure. We were all shocked, I guess, not really surprised when he had this executive order a little more than a month ago, restoring the voting rights and the other rights that convicted felons had taken away from them because of their conviction. 206,000 convicted felons, and it looks like at least 40,000 of these felons have committed violent crimes. And we think that it's bad policy, obviously, but also it's unconstitutional. The Constitution is very clear, the Constitution of Virginia, that the governor has rights to restore, has the authority to restore these rights. However, it's not a blanket authority. It's always, for 240 years, been done on a case-by-case method. And, in fact, this governor has restored about 18,000 individuals' rights since he's been governor on a case-by-case method. And we think the Constitution, we think law and precedent are clear that what he did is clearly unconstitutional. So we've petitioned the Virginia Supreme Court to issue what's called a writ of mandamus that would prohibit this law from being fulfilled, enacted. we hope that we'll get a quick response from the court and try and get this thing decided in a timely manner.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm all in favor of giving people that have served their time every opportunity to reenter society, be productive, and do things in a manner that's not going to contribute to them getting back. Our recidivism in the United States is the highest in the free world. Our incarceration percentage, the highest in the free world. It's all bad. But I tell you what troubles me about this. Governor Wilder didn't do it. Governor Kane didn't do it. Governor Warner didn't do it. All of a sudden, we get a Governor McAuliffe that decides this is the right thing to do. And the other troubling thing is he's doing it now to register voters, I guess. I mean, if this was a pure play of heart, why wouldn't you simply say, okay, we're going to make this effective December 1? And then I think you would have the same suit and the same argument, but some of the politicization of it would go away. But the fact that he's doing it now, I mean, it doesn't feel good to me.
Well, I think the majority of Virginians would agree with you on that, John. I think it's clear. But the problem is not the timing as much as just the constitutionality. He has far exceeded any authority that the Constitution gives him, and that's what the court will decide. And we're all believers in giving people second chances. Governor McDonald probably restored 10,000 felons their rights, but he did it on a case-by-case method. And not every one of these people. It always frustrates me when I hear people say they paid their debt to society. Well, they haven't paid their debt to society. They paid their penalty that's imposed for the crime that they've committed. But in many cases, they haven't even paid the monetary debt to society. They haven't paid their fee, court costs or fines or restitution. And surely, if you were doing it on a case-by-case method, you could say, well, sir, you haven't paid your fines yet. How can we restore your rights? So it's it does seem to be a very political action, but it's clearly an unconstitutional action in our mind, and the courts will decide, we hope. Quickly.
Well, look, I agree with you there. I think the blanket executive order is bad policy. I think there's got to be a way to do this within the Constitution, and I think the methodology to get there, this is just a wrong way. But look, the argument that Senator Norman makes on my show is that it makes it easier for violent felons to serve on juries. I've had that disputed by Congressman Bobby Scott and your colleague in the General Assembly, now running for Congress, Don McKeechin, who have said, that's nonsense because the juries will be vetted out. What is your position on this?
Well, I couldn't agree with Tommy more. And it's clear from the law that he is reinstating their right for them to be able to sit on juries, as well as to be a notary public, as well as to run for public office. That's why Chuck Richardson's able to run for office in Richmond City. He's a convicted felon, but he's running for mayor of Richmond City. I guess what McKeechin and Bobby Scott are saying is that the prosecution, or as they're going through their vetting of the different jury pool, can strike people, but they have a limited number of strikes, and when you start striking people, it affects the rest of the jury pool. And I'm sure you've seen that case that's been raised down in Dinwiddie County, where this man who's accused of killing a state trooper and is on trial for capital murder is petitioning the court to make sure that felons will be added to his jury pool, that they will be treated like everybody else. So there will be convicted felons who are sitting on juries, and you'll have a convicted murderer like this gentleman sitting on a murder trial. You'll have a convicted rapist sitting on a trial of somebody accused of rape, and it just you can lose all sorts of confidence in the judicial system.
Well, look, and as you said, that one gentleman that's running for mayor of Richmond, I mean, he's done it the right way. I think there's a right way and a wrong way for everything. By the way, just as a sidebar, I'm going to make a prediction. Morrissey's going to win that race. He's going to win it without a runoff. So you can put that in the bank. Let's get to economics of Virginia. There's a budget shortfall, Mr. Speaker, and it looks like Virginia could be, 100 to 170 million short this fiscal coming up due to the slower economic recovery. I mean, we've had, 1% growth since Obama's been there. How are you guys going to address this in the General Assembly? I mean, $170 million is a lot of money.
Yes, it is. Well, we're still waiting on the May revenue report. Sometimes these, when you look at a particular month, there can be, an extra day in the collection or one less day in the collection. So we'll know more when the May figures come in. But you're exactly right. This economy continues to be incredibly weak. I don't believe these numbers that say the unemployment rate is less than 5%. I think clearly that must not include people who have just given up, people that are underemployed. All you got to do is look around and see the layoffs and the problems we're having. And you can see that the economy in Virginia is not healthy. If we have, when we did our budget in January, we anticipated problems. It's a conservative budget. We have the flexibility to make adjustments if needed. We set our priorities, and if we're forced to, we can take a hard look at government spending and trim the budget. It can and it will be done, obviously. The difference between Washington and Richmond is pretty clear here. Washington can barely pass a budget. I don't believe they have yet this year, let alone balance one, and we've proven that we can balance the budget and cut spending to address shortfalls. You know, John, since 2007, we've cut over $7 billion in proposed spending to address budget shortfalls. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've heard me give this figure before, that we have killed over $30 billion in proposed tax increases since I've become Speaker. We're going to have to just continue this responsibility to manage our finances.
What about the rainy day fund?
Well, whether or not it'll be available in this case, we have reinstored. We're probably at about $700 million in the rainy day fund now, and whether we'll be able to touch that or not, whether we'll want to or not, remains to be seen. I think if it's $100 million, we can probably make the adjustments, relatively easily. But let's just see what I'm more concerned, John. And you're just talking about your prognostication on the Richmond mayoral contest. I really feel that we may well be coming into another recession over the next 12 to 18 months. Mm-hmm. And the economy just is not improving. There's a lot of problems out there. This deficit that we continue to accumulate is just mind-boggling and frightening. I can remember when I first started talking about it in relation to Medicaid expansion, I think it was $15 trillion, and now I believe it's right up at about $19 trillion. And
it keeps going up. We keep passing budgets. By the way, the Republican leadership, who I'm not a fan of in Washington, any of them, they keep passing omnibus and cromnibus. They keep passing budgets with increasing the debt. There seems to be no way out. Speaker Howell, Medicaid, here we go again. It's like the record that keeps skipping and you can't get it off. Governor McAuliffe attempted to veto the language prohibiting expanding Medicaid. Once again, that's not going to happen. You've ruled it invalid and said it's not going to be recognized. To the average listener, this is a lot of inside baseball, mumbo jumbo. What's it all mean?
Well, the governor does have broad veto powers, but they're not unlimited. They're limited both by statute and by the Constitution and by the courts. And the Supreme Court has ruled that a governor can't veto a budget item, a condition to a budget item, without also vetoing the appropriation to which it is tied. In other words, we put a budget amendment in and it says we're going to pass this budget of $100 billion, whatever it is. And it's conditioned on the fact that, and one of the conditions in there is that the governor can't expand Medicaid. So he can't then just go and take the condition out without having to veto the whole budget. And he didn't do that, of course. He's not going to do that. It's been held, the Supreme Court has held that it's been done before. Several other governors have made the same attempt, Republicans, Democrats, and Republican and Democrat speakers have held that it's not appropriate and haven't recognized them. The clerk of the House will write a little letter to the governor and say we're not including that veto in the rolls of Virginia. So it's just not there.
So, Governor McAuliffe under investigation by the FBI. This is an ongoing investigation. I assume you're not going to want to comment on it, so I'm not going to waste time by asking you to comment. But let me just ask you.
John, I'll comment.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, all I know about it is probably all most people knows what you read in the paper.
Right.
I'm a strong believer in a person is innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
And we don't need that kind of problem in Virginia. I hope it's not true, but the FBI is going to look at it, and they're going to. I think the thing that probably is more troubling than not is that apparently it's been a ongoing examination, investigation. I guess they think there's something there, but we'll just have to wait and see. And so I sincerely hope it's not true. I do believe that everybody's entitled to their innocence until a court proves them guilty, and we're not there yet.
So, Mr. Speaker, when you were running for re-election last cycle and you had a primary challenge and then you had a general election challenge, if you were having a meeting with your campaign staff in your conference room there at your office and somebody said, hey, we just got a check-in for $120,000 large, would you ask a question or just say, wow, stick it in the bank?
Well, it's hard to answer hypothetical questions like that. I've never gotten a check like that, so I'd probably have to.
I think you would probably, or your wife, Cassie, somebody would probably ask a question like, well, who is this guy? I'm just saying, I would think you would ask a question, right? You would probably ask somebody where this money generated from. I mean, if it was $12,000, maybe you say, well, that's nice, thank you. $120,000 to your campaign. I think you would probably want to know what the genesis of it is. But look, that's just me. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for joining us today. And maybe someday somebody will send you a campaign check for $120,000. Maybe that's in the cards.
John, it's always great to be on your show, and I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Speaker of the House, Bill Howell, joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.